Crosswalk family, good morning and welcome. I just want to also say hi to our online community. Maybe you're joining us from home or you're catching this later on the podcast. We are so blessed to have such a large community. Today, I see a lot of new faces. Maybe it's your first time here and you're a newcomer, or you're coming back from a break from summer. I just want to say thank you for joining with us today. Many of you probably have no idea who I am yet. My name is Danika Thomas, and I am your outreach director. I am super excited to be here this morning, but I am also very, very nervous, so bear with me. We just participated in an incredible experience with World Vision. Last weekend, we had our Chosen launch, where a lot of you signed up to sponsor a child in Ghana, and today is our Reveal weekend. Hopefully you grabbed your envelopes on the way in. I apologize for a delay in our Reveal video. Pastor Dave had a lot of hiccups. He tried to leave on Sunday to fly to Ghana and was delayed. Several airplanes just didn't leave on time. There was a medical emergency on the way across the ocean, and the plane came back. So he wants you all to know that he is very sorry. The video has been recorded. It's just not ready for us this morning. So just be patient. He promises you that he's bringing it, okay? So if you were excited to see that today, I also really apologize. But we had a goal, and we blasted through that goal, you guys. We hit almost 100 child sponsorships in Ghana. And I'm just really proud of everyone who decided to do this. It's just been a huge blessing to be a part of all of this. So, I know, why am I here? Why am I standing here? Well, Pastor Dave is traveling, and a couple months ago, we thought maybe this would be a better idea in case he had some hiccups along the way. And he called me on the phone, and he said, Danika, do you feel like coming up here and sharing your story? I pulled the phone away from my face and I said, Pastor Dave, you've called the wrong person. This is a mistake. Me? Are you sure? I said, please just give me some time to think about this. And I consulted some colleagues and people that I really care about, and they said, yeah, do it. Maybe I can close out Missio Day, the mission of God, in my own way. Maybe this version of me has something here to offer you. So that's why I'm here. Here I am. I walked into this crosswalk 2 years ago. Our family had just moved to Chattanooga. My husband took a job at Erlanger Hospital, and he works as a pediatric hospitalist. We did not know this area, and we just needed a fresh start. I stepped into that lobby, maybe like many of you for the first time today, and I took it all in, and it was too big, and it was too loud. I really wanted a coffee, but the line was too long. And so I walked in and it was dark, and I sat in the very back row with my back against the wall. I took it all in and I said, this is not my church. This is not for me. I don't belong here. But after a couple months, I saw that they were hiring an outreach director, and I thought I'd go for it, and by some miracle, this team decided to take a chance on me, a nobody. I am originally from a small town called Lodi, California. There is a famous band called CCR. They wrote a song about Lodi. It's called Stuck in Lodi Again. That's how much they hated it when they were on tour and they went through. I had a really hard childhood. If you're into psychology, my ACE score is actually really high. I went to the same K through 12 school as my entire family, 3 generations deep. And then I went on to Pacific Union College in Northern California, and I studied, PUC alumni, and I studied to be an elementary school teacher. I just wanted a normal, settled life. But the universe is kind of funny. I met a guy when I was in college, and this guy tells me, hey, I want to be a doctor. So Wilson and I decide, okay, I want to impress him. We're on this date. you want to be a doctor? What kind? He goes, well, I don't want to be a regular doctor. I actually plan to be a mission doctor in Africa. So if we plan to keep dating, you have to know that and you have to sign on board. And I said, oh, I would really like to agree to that. So yes, I 100% am in, let's do it. I really wanted to impress him. I never actually thought I'd have to keep that first date promise. Years go by and we are married. We're living down in Southern California. He's working as a pediatrician in Loma Linda, if you're familiar with Southern California. And I had a teaching job. We had 2 babies, Levi and Apple, and I was living the American dream. I had a big house, great car. I had a job. My kids were happy and thriving. We had dogs. I'm not going anywhere, or so I thought. Wilson is restless. He's ready to go. We get a call from the head of the mission program, and they say, your family has been called to serve in Malawi, Africa, at Malamulo Adventist Hospital. But what was my role? I'm not a missionary. I struggle with the word missions and what it means. Maybe some of you feel that way also. I don't look like an ideal missionary. I have tattoos and piercings, and I say bad words. I'm not a doctor. I don't evangelize. So what am I? The General Conference has a name for me, the trailing spouse. We sold everything that we owned and packed it all down into 16 suitcases. I prepared for a 38-hour journey across the world with my family. I told all my friends, don't worry, I'll be back next year. I don't belong in Africa. So a doctor, a trailing spouse, and 2 babies, 16 suitcases, landed on the red clay soil of Malawi. And we're told, okay, go be missionaries now. The first thing that hits you when you land in Africa and your feet step off of that airplane is the smell. It smells like smoke and burning plastic and earth. There's this buzz of noise around you, singing and chatter and animals. We loaded up our Land Cruisers with the suitcases and our family, and we drove on towards our new life on the mission. I had grown up with stories of missionaries in Africa. There's always some miracle that seems to happen, but there's not a handbook. I was afraid as the reality of what we had done had settled in. Are we going to be okay? Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Okay, but that's easier said than done, right? If I'm supposed to be doing this, why isn't it easier? People were excited for a pediatrician. Malawi, half the population is under the age of 15. It's landlocked by Tanzania and Mozambique and Zambia. There's no special imports. There's no exports. There was no war. So it's called the warm heart of Africa. It's famous for its calendar lake, and they call it a calendar lake because it's 365 miles long, 52 miles across. And if you're into this kind of thing, the largest population of freshwater cichlids in the world. It is beautiful. It rains all the time, so it's very green. There's these incredible safari parks. There's tea fields. But it is also the poorest country per capita in the world. I live by 3 rules to keep my family alive. Rule number 1, watch for snakes. In Malawi, there are 67 species of snakes, and 20 of them happen to be on the world's most deadly list. Rule number 2, watch for cars. There are no driving rules. One time I hired a taxi to take me to town, and in drove a 9-year-old boy. I looked him in the face and I said, I'm sorry, not you, anyone else. Rule number 3, don't climb the mango trees when the hospital is out of anesthesia. Our world revolved around medicines, what doctors were visiting us, and what was available. My new house was small and old. We lived on this mission compound with 5 other families. We had lots of visitors coming to do medical rotations or study malaria. Life was very vibrant. But I felt lost. I did everything wrong, and I said everything wrong as I was adjusting to this new life and this move. I tried to be a good missionary, but how do you do that with no purpose? Well, life was simple, but it was really fun. Maybe there's some people here who have lived in Africa and you know this phrase, TIA. This is Africa. If you've never been, it's as cool as you imagine it. It's hectic and it's wild and it's slow and it's chaotic. My kids, they grew up, they got to be free. They learned how to be a part of a village. They got to roam. They never wore shoes. I had a big garden, no shoes, big garden, lots of snakes. And we had lots of fruits and vegetables, we had avocados and bananas and passion fruit and guava. I even had my own coffee plants. I would grow these coffee beans and roast them. It was cool. My kids would come home with all kinds of animals. One time Apple came home with a hedgehog, or Levi would come home with a monkey, and I would say, no, 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 I don't want that. I would go for walks for hours, just greeting people. I met people with funny names like Lemon Squeeze, Blessings, Lettuce. There's no Taco Bell, so you have to learn how to make everything from scratch. You want a burrito? Okay, fine. Mill the flour, make the tortillas, soak the beans, find some cheese if you're lucky, and there's your burrito. We lived by village time, so I'd wake up with the roosters at 5 a.m. The mosquitoes would come out around 4, so we'd all have to come inside, and then we'd go to bed at sundown because there's just nothing else to do. One of the hardest things is going for long stretches without power or running water. I used to play this game where if the power had been out for 3 or 4 days, but you need something out of the fridge, you'd have to go to the fridge, visualize what's inside, and then open it, grab it, and close it really quickly. Learning how to go without running water is probably the hardest. You need to wash your hands, wash your clothes, wash yourself. So we go down to the garden with these big buckets and collect rain and bring it inside. There's not really any grocery stores where we live, so we go down to the village market and see what was in stock for the day, sometimes little piles of beans or tomatoes or onions. Apple really liked to choose a 6-foot-tall thing of sugar cane, so you'd always find this little baby toddling around chewing on a 6-foot thing stalk of sugar cane. Levi was always off in the village playing soccer. I knew he'd come back home when he got hungry. There's no clothes, so when visitors would come with their suitcases of things, I would wait to see what they wanted to leave behind. So I would go through and say, I'll have that shirt and those pants, this hairbrush, thank you, toothpaste. They had beautiful fabrics, so you could make really nice dresses. Town was about 2 hours away. So we would do one monthly grocery shop for really fancy things, like cheese, toilet paper, whatever we needed. And I met some really cool expat people living there. Yes, we got to go on safari. Our family's favorite thing would be to go in for the weekend into these game parks. We had a cool Land Cruiser and Overlander kind of thing. And we would camp at night and listen to hyenas, and we'd wake up to a leopard kill, and we got to see all kinds of birds. And we'd take these boat rides through hippos and crocodiles. My kids are still probably afraid of open water right now because we spent so much of our time saying, stay away from the water, stay away from the water, stay away from the water. But on holidays, you miss your family. I'd wake up in the morning to see pictures of my family all together at Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I would just be sad. I tried really hard to make my life in Malawi the same as it was in America, but I think we all know that didn't work. It's the wrong weather. Nothing feels right or smells right. So one year I declared, this is the year that we have a real American Thanksgiving. I bought this little baby turkey, and I put it down in the pen, and I named it, that's my first mistake, I named it Lloyd, and I would sing to Lloyd and feed it kitchen scraps, and I'd just grow it juicy and fat, and I knew that I'd have to say goodbye. So on the day of Lloyd's sacrifice, I went down to the pen to tell him thank you, and that pen was empty. Lloyd, all 25 pounds of him, had flown away in the night and freed himself, and so our Thanksgiving ended up being lentil soup over candlelight. Christmas was simple. I would go around the house and find little things like Scotch tape, packets of chips or chocolate, just to wrap it so we'd have something to open in the morning, and we were happy. That first transition year, life was slow. All these doctors were doing incredible, important things, but not me. God, I prayed, can I go? You don't need me. I'm an accidental missionary. But God nudged me and said, no, you are needed here. I get a call one day from the higher-ups, and they say, hey, we need you. You're a teacher, right? What do you need to build a school? And I said, why? We had other doctors there with their kids, we had African surgeons, and we had Malawian students, and we all had kind of one thing in common, which is that we spoke a little bit of English. So we said, let's build this school, let's bring the kids. I said, well, okay, I need a huge chunk of money, some land, materials, supplies, textbooks, teachers, students. That's a lot of stuff. I talked to some old colleagues on the phone, and I went around to different Adventist schools on our holidays, and we collect textbooks and supplies, and we shipped 1,300 pounds of books in an air shipment across the world to Malawi. I said, okay, I'm gonna set up this school, and then I'm taking my family back. The Adventist Review magazine was ready to write their article about this school, the first of its kind. The only problem is I didn't have any students. I felt like a failure. Word had gotten out that this was a bad place. My dream had just been to educate young girls. In Malawi, by 3rd grade, most of them have dropped out. They're needed to pump water, cook, do laundry, and if they're not valuable at home, they get to marry off. 1 week before school is set to open, Joaquina, a nurse at the school, comes to my house and knocks on the door, and she brought her daughter, April. April is tiny. I look at Joaquina and I say, well, how old is April? And Joa says, how old do you have to be to come to this school? And I said, well, kindergarten's 5, so 5. So Joa says, oh yes, she's 5. April was not 5. April was tiny. The next student that came was Prosper. Prosper had big cheeks and big eyes, and he was so excited and eager to be there, but he spoke no English. One by one, this school started to take root. We cut the ribbon on Malamulo Adventist School, and we opened a brand new 2-room schoolhouse and a safe place for students to come and learn English with me. In fact, our VBS just collected a bunch of supplies for them, and we're shipping it out. I had to change everything that I knew about teaching. Our cultures were so different. I read this really cute story about this pig that comes, and the little girls in the story, they take this pig in and they dress it in a tutu and a princess crown, and it joins them at the table. It's just a 2nd grade story. So I tell this story to the students, and I think it's gonna be very cute. We're gonna do a writing prompt and talk about it. So I say, what would you do if a pig came into your house? I thought we'd get normal stories. And Wai stands up and says, I would strike it and eat it. So I knew then that I'd have to pivot. How do you teach it about 4 seasons when there's only 2? How do you teach it about snowmen and snowflakes when all there is hot and rain? I had a brand new printer that had come over on the air shipment. I unpacked it so carefully. I knew we didn't have enough textbooks, and so I needed to make these copies for my students. I go and I unpack it, I take all the wrapping off, and I plug it into the wall, so excited, and I go to make my first copy. And instead of copies, I got sparks and smoke and flames because I have taken an American printer and plugged it into a Malawian 220-volt outlet, and I've exploded it. My failure ended up turning into potential. That school is running today. It is filled with students, and it's actually run by SMs, student missionaries from Southern or Walla Walla. I still sponsor those kids to this day. I support their families. I get pictures of them. I'm very proud of where they've come from. My husband was the missionary doctor, but what the school needed was me. You are needed here. Everything was in place, so I said, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go back to the USA. But then COVID happened. All of the visitors on the mission pulled out, leaving just the missionary doctors. The US Embassy calls us, and they say, we have one final flight leaving from Malawi back to the USA. There will be no more flights. If you want 4 seats on this airline, let us know. It's $12,000. I said, okay, God, you're answering my prayer in a funny way. Yes, you can leave, but you also can't afford it. We didn't know what was coming. All the missionaries, we sat together in that room, kind of eyeballing each other, wondering who's gonna take the flight. Did we think that we would survive it? No. But we all decided together that if we are called to missions, this is what it looks like. We prepared for a continent-wide decimation of Africa. The medical infrastructure couldn't handle. The flights did stop completely. Every organization had already gone back to their home countries, but not the missionaries of Malamulo. We were lucky. We had a surgeon there. She had experience with Ebola. So she taught us how to get ready. We had 3 oxygen machines, an Ebola tent now turned into a COVID unit, and all of this knowledge to try to prevent the spread. The virus was bad, but it couldn't take off like we originally imagined. Everyone there is really young. We have these open air markets. People are walking miles and miles each day, so they're exercising. And most people are underweight. So by some miracle, we survived it. This is a pivot in my story. This is the moment that I had to release and surrender it all to faith. I live in Malawi. I am indefinitely planted. There is no way out. There are no flights. I prayed, Lord, what do I need to do to stop running, to stop being this trailing spouse? And he said, you are home. You are needed here. Things eventually opened up again. All the humanitarian organizations came back. Doctors Without Borders, UNICEF, Red Cross, and actually World Vision. They don't know it at the time, but I saw it. But it was just in time for Tropical Cyclone Freddy. In March of 2023, Malawi was hit with the longest lasting tropical cyclone ever recorded. Cyclone Freddy gave us 6 months worth of rain in only 6 days. It was a Category 5. There was catastrophic floods and landslides, and so the world declared it a state of emergency. We had relentless rain for 5 weeks straight. Our hospital became a place of immediate critical care. Most people there live in mud houses with straw roofs, and they were collapsing in the flash floods. Our own hospital had 2 feet of water running through it. Our ceilings were crashing down. We had no electricity, and we didn't have clean water to wash our hands or run surgeries. People needed our help. The driving bridge to town had been completely washed out, and it cut us off from supplies. All of these years that I had spent making friends and building relationships with people ended up being the thing that saved us. I made a few calls for help, and we smuggled life-saving medicine through 3 African borders. My friends brought us generator fuel, clean water, and they got it across a makeshift bridge. I saw Jesus in my friends. They owed us nothing. They weren't even Christian. They weren't even churchgoers, but they knew that we needed help, and so they showed up. We just kept putting one foot in front of the other. We just kept going, and I heard it. You are needed here. I had this verse taped to my mirror to get me through. But blessed is the one who trusts the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes. Its leaves are always green. One last piece of my story that I couldn't quite figure out is church. We didn't have an English service. We used to have Sabbath school on the floor of our house. We were doing the same books that I had moved there with until the pages were falling out. You know, every week the kids got the memory verse right. It never changed. They would get their little star stickers. And so we finally decided to start an English class. We gathered other moms from all the different cultures, the different African countries, the Malawians, and we said, hey, we need a church for us. And we called it Mount Sinai Church. Well, our first lesson with an elder from the community didn't really go so well. He called all the kids down to come and join him so he could tell us this story of a young boy who wouldn't close his eyes during prayer. So one day, the pastor is telling this sermon, and then it's time to pray, please bow your heads and close your eyes. And the little boy didn't listen. And so his eyes were open, and then a wasp flew into his eyes and blinded him forever. Now remember that. Go back to your seats, kids. How could we connect with the people at church? How could we be friends when we were so different? Each week we'd walk down to church and I'd pack a little bag with toilet paper and snacks and hand sanitizer, and we'd throw out our fabrics, our chitenji, under the mango trees. And these mango trees are over 80 feet tall. And in the hot heat, while we were listening, the mangoes would drop down like bombs and smash into us. And I would say, that's God's way of saying, stay alert in church. One day, the moms of the Mount Sinai Church decided that we were going to go for a walk to a waterfall and have a picnic. In 7 years of my wandering, I had never found this waterfall, but I had been told, oh, it's just some distance. My family packed 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a small bag of chips, and then at the last minute, we decided to pack our 1-gallon heavy Yeti jug of freshly loaded ice water. We wanted to leave early in the morning so we could beat the heat because we didn't know the way. It was just a group of women and little kids, and so we decided to meet at the designated starting point. And on American time, we were there. And on African time, it was 2 hours later. So we sat and watched the sun go high into the sky as the temperature got hotter and hotter. And I learned that the word picnic does not translate. These women showed up with bags of live chickens, 50 pounds of charcoal, spaghetti noodles, pots and pans, a cook stove, porridge. It was heavy, but guess what? Our hands were empty, so we got to help them carry it. We marched for miles and miles. We got to sing songs with them. We didn't know the words, but we did our best, and it was beautiful to listen to as we marched and marched. We came to a ravine where someone had laid down a eucalyptus tree across it so that we could go. And one thing I need you all to know about me is I am terrified of heights. So after everyone had crossed and I am the last one there, they all pulled out their phones and videoed me as I cried and went across this ravine where I was certain I would fall to my death and die. They just laughed at me. The kids were so thirsty, but guess who had water? It was us. I kept opening the lid of this gallon, just thinking by some miracle, God had done it loaves and fishes and refilled it. But no, it just kept emptying and emptying. Every time we'd ask for directions, someone would say, oh, just some distance. There's no map. I kept asking, how much farther? How much farther? After 4 hours of wandering in over 100 degrees, we finally spotted the waterfall off in the distance. The kids ran at full speed, shedding their clothes off in various states of nakedness and jumping in triumph. All of this water, and we can't drink a drop. The ladies set to work preparing their chickens and their meal, and they laughed at us with our little sandwiches. That's not food, they said. You haven't eaten unless you've had porridge. They ended up feeling so bad for us that they invited us to share this meal with them, and so we did. The walk back was brutal. We were lost. We were thirsty. There's no more excitement, but we spotted a schoolyard down in the distance. I know that schoolyards have wells, so we ran to find it. There was a borehole there, and a borehole, they're planted by other organizations. It has a big pump and a lever, and only the adults are tall enough to get to it. So while one adult would pump, I would sit at the end with my hands cupped to let the little ones drink. We filled our bellies to maximum capacity. In that moment where everything is stripped away, your skin color doesn't matter, your status doesn't matter, your home country, the only thing that matters is clean water. We became a team. I started to get invites to come and sit with them and gossip, to sit on the porch and sift through corn flour. We joined the choir, and we became a family. We started closing the gap of 100 years of missionary otherness that kept our cultures from understanding one another. There's the nudge. You are needed here. Okay, because I'm a teacher, here's your Dr. Seuss quote. What God wants is the youest version of you. Remember, I wasn't the missionary, okay? I was the trailing spouse. This is my experience that I'm sharing. None of it was in my plan. I wasn't even supposed to be there. Jesus didn't need me to be this perfect, ideal missionary. He just needed me to be me. How did we know that it was time to leave? Malawi had been my home for 7 years, but my faith had bottomed out. I had nothing left to give. I was holding on to too many stories of pain and suffering. My friend Joe, it was hot, so his kids decided to go down to the lake. The second born was only supposed to get in up to his waist. He couldn't swim, and the firstborn couldn't save him. How can I grieve with this family? I didn't know, so I sat on the floor with them and I wept. One day, a young girl from our village was walking home from school, and a man called out to her, and she told him, "Go away. Your dad's the boss," or her dad's the boss, and she's going home. I sent money for her funeral, and our village mourned for a week. My own family was experiencing burnout, personal trauma, lack of resources. I begged God, please, for one more miracle. With the help of friends, we sent resumes out, and I got a phone call from a place called Erlanger in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We knew nothing about this area. We just packed it up and moved on to a new chapter of life. I walked into Crosswalk 2 years ago, an accidental missionary with no mission. I sat in the back row, and I declared, "This is not my church." But Jesus said, "No, you belong here." Who is called to missions? You, me, us. The mission of God is not sending the perfect missionary. It's just to serve and love one another. Again, he said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you." What God needed wasn't for me to be this or that, or like my neighbor or this other missionary I'd read about. He just wanted me, to be youer than you, to be the person that people want to talk to. My story is not finished. My faith is being filled again here with all of you, sharing my stories. Jesus is healing parts of me that I actually thought were broken indefinitely. He's not done with me, and he's not done with you. I am so grateful to be here with all of you, serving with you and representing you as your outreach director. This is my version of come as you are. Thank you for sitting with me. Dear Heavenly Father, fill this room with your presence. Maybe there's someone here who felt like me, who walked into Crosswalk and didn't think they had anything left to give. God, you're here to work through us, to help us step into the muddy waters in faith, and to not know the path that you've already laid out for us before we were even formed. God, thank you for being here, for helping me share my story. Please work through everyone that's in this room today and listening to this, and help us go out and serve and do what we've been called to do. Amen.